I guess it was Friday night, yeah, in Utica. And the president of the state association was the postmaster of Utica. And I went in and presented my wrench. Yeah, by golly, these wrenches are all over. Say, young fella, you've done quite a job here. I said, yeah. I said, we're hoping that you'll vote, your organization will vote favorably to come to Jamestown. Then he knocked me over. He said, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but I'm not going to have anything to do with it. Neither is my group. I said, you're the State Association of Postmasters. But he said, this year is the year we are nominating President Roosevelt for the second time. Well, I said, who is going to be the power? James Farley. Jim Farley was the right hand of President Roosevelt. Did you ever meet him?
Never met him, but I read about him.
Oh, boy, what a man. So, here I was in Utica. My wife was with me. She was tired out. So the Empire hadn't come in yet, so I got her on the Empire and sent her home. And somebody picked her up at Westfield, I don't know. And I started with that package from Utica to Washington, D.C. And I got in that night about 8 o'clock, a little after. And I called Shoreham. And that's where Bob Jackson lived. And Mary, his wife, answered. I said, Mary, this is Charlie Laycock. Charlie, where are you? I said, I'm in the Ambassador. She said, what are you doing in town? I said, I want to talk to Bob. She says, well, he's got laryngitis. He's laid flat with a blanket over on the Davenport, but come on out. And she always used to make a piece of cherry pie out of heaven. She always had a hunk of cherry pie for me. It was so good. So I went to the sheriff, and here's Bob. Where are you? I said, Bob, I've been all over the state, and I'm promoting this Postmasters Convention. Another crazy idea. He said, Charlie, what are you doing, bringing a bunch of Democrats into that hellhole of Republicans? No, he said, it'll never work. I said, Bob, I'm going to give it everything I can. Now, I said, all I want to do, I want to get to Mr. Farley, the Postmaster General. He looked at me as though he was a jackass. And I felt like a jackass. Well, he said, I don't know. He said, Charlie, you do the craziest things. Well, I said, Bob, we want the business for the hotel because
This was the Hotel Jamestown.
Huh?
The Hotel Jamestown?
Yeah, both of them were owned by the Andersons. And we had discovered the improvement of the highways between Erie and Buffalo. The salesman would drive down here and get his orders and never come in our hotel. So we lose $5.75 room charge. And that same thing with Erie. So we had to counter in some way. That was a business matter. Well, he said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to stay at the Ambassador. I want to see Jim Farley. Well, he said, I don't know. He said, go ahead and go to the Farley. But he took one from Jamestown. One of the secretaries, I forget her name.
L.C. Douglas?
Huh?
L.C. Douglas?
No, another one, too. An elderly lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, I went back to the Ambassador, stayed in the room. Finally, by 11 o'clock, Monday morning, the phone rang and I picked it up. Charlie, what are you doing in town? And I said, well, I'm trying hard to get a convention. Yeah, I heard about it. Well, then she told me that Farley was in New York on Monday. Wouldn't be back in Washington until Thursday. Charlie, what are you going to do? Do you want to come back? I said, I'm going to stay right here. You can see Farley Thursday afternoon on a platform, and I'm telling you, the most welcome I've ever had in my life, in all the big men I've had to meet, General Motors and Ford and all that I've gone through. He got off the platform, put his hand out. Well, glad to see you. Convention? What convention? And then Ambrose interjected. He said, well, General, he was after doing promotion for the Postmasters Convention, which is meeting in May in Jamestown, New York. Where's Jamestown? Where's Jamestown? I had to tell him it was just south of Buffalo, you know. Well, by golly, that sounds pretty good. Can you accommodate them? Oh, I said, we've got 2 big hotels, 885 rooms, and most welcome they'll be. Well, I don't see anything wrong with that. Do you, Ambrose? He said, I'm in favor of that. Woo! So I just quietly took it, and finally, when I got through, here's what I did. I personally invited James Farley, the Postmaster General, to come to Jamestown. And that's what Bob Jackson never would believe. But I right out came, I said, General, would you mind considering coming to Jamestown personally for this convention? Well, he said, Ambrose, mark it down. This sounds pretty good. He said, yeah. And doggone, he came.
No kidding.
He came. Well, in addition to that, Babe and I are out in the kitchen, my wife, talking to Max Valley, because that banquet was over 700, and that ballroom is limited to about 700. And you go beyond that, you got trouble. We've been talking to the chef, and we were coming from the kitchen through the dining room, and over here sits James Farley and Bob Jackson. So Bob said to me, hey, Babe, come on over. So Babe answered it. She walked over, and he said, Jim, he said, here's the brains of the convention effort. Babe, his wife, Laycock here is just the mouth, that's all. Don't pay. So Jim spoke up. He said, hey, you made a bet. No, but then Bob did bet me in Washington that he wouldn't come. And I took the bet. So he was paying off the bet. So Jim Farley remembered he talked to him about the bet. So he paid off the bet. So Jim Farley didn't drink or smoke. Another cup of coffee. Bob had another cup of coffee. Babe, what do you have? Well, she said, Bob, I've had coffee with a chef out there, but just give me a small cup. So coffee. I stood there, never said a word. So finally, Jim Farley looked at me. He said, hey, Bob, what about Charlie here? He said, gosh, he's done all this work. Oh, yeah, give him a glass of milk, and that's what I got. But John Wright then, I'd made him aware of it. We'd wired all that second floor, and we had a tremendous layout. And every room we had was sold, packed out. And there were beautiful people.